We've been talking about economics for the last couple of lectures. Let's now talk about politics, particularly the English crown. In 1688, you were going to have a bloodless coup against the King of England. His name was James II. James II, the same guy that was given New Jersey and New York as the Duke of York by his brother, assumes the throne because his brother dies without a legitimate heir. Charles had kids, but they were all conceived out of wedlock, so they could never inherit the throne. So the only legitimate heir would have been James, his brother James. Now, James has a little problem in terms of the fact that he's Catholic. And at first, it really is not much of a problem because his wife, her name was Anne Hyde, was a Protestant. And the reason why that's not a problem for the English is because we have to remember your religion follows your mother. For example, if your mother is Catholic and your father is Protestant, you're Catholic. You're born into the Catholic Church, and it doesn't matter what religion your father is. So as long as James is having kids with his first wife, and his first wife stays alive, there's really not much of a problem because those kids would be Protestant. The problem now is going to be twofold for James. Number one, he marries a second time. His first wife dies, and he marries a second wife. Her name was Mary of Modena. And the problem is going to be here is that she is a Catholic. Now, soon after they get married, guess what? Mary is now going to be pregnant. And so the Parliament's going to be a little bit uneasy because no matter what, as long as the baby is a girl, it's really not going to be much of a problem. A Catholic princess rather than a Protestant princess. Not a big deal. But the problem is going to be if it's going to be a boy, because no matter where you are in the birth order of all your kids, of all your siblings, the firstborn male will be the next King of England. And so he could be that child could be the last born of all the kids, or he could be the firstborn. But as long as he has that magical Y chromosome and he's the first one to have it, he's going to take everything. And guess what? Mary gives birth to a boy, a son, which also his name is James. And so now you have a major problem when it comes to Parliament. Now you're going to you're under threat of having another Catholic dynasty ruling over a heavily Protestant nation. Not exactly a recipe for success. So Parliament's going to get uneasy, and what's it going to do? It's going to go find the eldest daughter of James. Her name was Mary. Mary's a Protestant because her mother was Protestant, and Mary just happened to be married to the King of Holland, the leader of Holland. His name was William. And they asked him basically, hey, would you like to be a really loyal daughter and come over here and basically overthrow your father so we don't have another Catholic dynasty on the throne? Well, as the loyal daughter, she says, yeah, I'm going to. I'll come over. Sarcasm alert. But the only way that she would do it is if they would allow her husband to also be king. And so they said, yes, no problem. And William and Mary sail across the English Channel and invade England. Now, James could have survived this situation. However, he doesn't. The reason why is because a bunch of his nobles and much of his army, as soon as William and Mary set foot on English soil, they all go to the Dutch side. They abandoned their king. And so what does James do? He basically gallops off the battlefield, throws his crown, I believe, into the Thames River, and flees to France. But so therefore we have a bloodless coup that we call the Glorious Revolution, and that's pretty. That's a temporary end of the Stuart dynasty. The Stuart dynasty includes James the First, Charles the First, Charles the Second, James the Second, and we'll see a resurrection of it in the form of James's youngest daughter Anne. But nonetheless, William and Mary are going to take over England. And that's where we get the name of Thomas Jefferson's alma mater, the College of William and Mary. But nonetheless, after William and Mary die, it's up to James's remaining daughter, her name was Anne, to become queen. So you have this brief time period where England is controlled by what we call the House of Orange, and then it's going to go back to the Stuarts. Well, unfortunately, Anne dies without an heir, and so or a direct heir. So they need to find a new household to take over the English throne. And they look around and they find some distant German cousins. They're known as the Hanoverians, and they are going to take over. And I call them the Georges because we're going to get we're going to get a whole bunch of them. But the most important ones, George the First, George the Second, and of course George the Third, are going to be Hanoverians. George the First barely speaks a lick of English. He barely spends any time in England, despite the fact that he is King of England. But nonetheless, we're going to, the Glorious Revolution brings down temporarily the Stuart dynasty. And of course, it comes back up through another offshoot of that dynasty. But eventually, the Stuarts are going to go away. And we have the last royal dynasty on the throne during the American colonial experience, known as the Hanoverians. That dynasty, by the way, will not go away until the death of Victoria, Queen of Victoria, in the very early 20th century, and then it goes. It's called Saxe-Coburg, and then it'll be changed to the current ruling family known as the Windsors.